Here to discuss what happened in Ferguson is the Vice President of Business and Culture at the Media Research Center, Dan Gainor. Dan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, well, it's easy to shoot the messenger here. As someone who's been a reporter, it's not always easy to report these kinds of stories here. What did you find, though, most offensive about the way the mainstream media covered the Ferguson story?
Well, they really hyped it going into this. It's not like it's not news, but there was a case just a couple of weekends ago where there was a fairly standard liberal protest, a little more than 100 people doing what they like to call a die-in, where you just lay out in the middle of the street, somebody draws chalk outlines around you. And Les been doing that for years. A little more than 100 people, all three major networks covered it for their evening news shows. You get more than 250,000 people for the March for Life in D.C., and you're lucky if one network show covers it. It's the very inflammatory terms they used, whether it's a powder keg or talking about the worst possible thing that can happen. The media hyped this like we were going into the Monday Night Football game or even a Super Bowl with two teams.
So, Dan, do you think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the media keeps saying, oh, there's going to be riots, there's going to be outbursts, there's going to be, and then the people are like, well, yeah, we should be protesting, we should be going to the streets because they feel like that's what they should be doing?
Well, yeah, but if you ask somebody, do you think you should riot often enough, you're going to put the idea in their head. And then you surround the city with so many cameras, it's astonishing. I mean, earlier this year, after the protests had died down a little bit, I think, what I was watching on live stream sometimes, it looked like there was almost a 1-for-1 journalist to protester ratio. And this time we had numerous major media outlets covered. New York Times had a whole bunch of people. The major networks had a whole bunch of people. At some point in time, do we have, how many reporters and journalists do we need to cover the actions of a few hundred people?
So is it kind of the tail wagging the dog and creating the actual news itself?
It certainly contributed to it. And, if you're a protester, there's a certain expectation. Okay, well, all these cameras aimed at me, I'm supposed to misbehave. And there were, some of the incidents, you could see that, whether it's on live stream with, social media people pushing it, or whether it's the major media outlets themselves.
Well, Dan, last night, Darren Wilson finally got to have his say doing that interview with George Stephanopoulos on ABC News. How do you think it came across, and do you think this will do anything to quell the violence, or will it only incite more violence?
I think there's nothing that he could have said that would not be dissected by his opponents, his critics, and the media. That it's just a no-win situation. I understand putting his words out there, but there's still two investigations. There's a federal investigation and a civil trial investigation, and I think it was probably unwise to do so.
Really, you don't think Darren Wilson should have come out before the cameras and said anything?
I think there's nothing he could say. I think you release a statement and then you move on and try, because already look how the media are trying to parse the evidence. They're treating the Ferguson PD like it's NYPD. Oh, okay, well you didn't exactly do what we see on CSI on television, and we want to see you do that. Well, it's the police department of 53 people. Of course they didn't do what you see on television. It's a small community.
Well, it's too late now. I mean, that grand jury has come back with that no bill on those 5 possible indictments. No indictment at all for Darren Wilson, and he can't stand in double jeopardy. We'll see what happens with that civil case, though. I personally think that it was the smart thing for Darren Wilson to come out before the TV cameras, and I think he did pretty well in that interview. Dan Gainor, thank you for your opinion, sir. It's always great to talk to you. Anybody from the Media Research Center, get your take on what's taking place.
Thank you very much. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. We can't say it enough here today. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody at home. We're back with more here on America's Forum. Thankfully, you're sticking around for another hour of programming here on Newsmax TV.